In the summer of 1492, amidst the stifling, malaria-infested heat of Rome, Pope Innocent VIII became unwell, and it was soon clear that he was seriously ill. He began suffering from stomach pains, and his digestion was severely affected. The Pope's personal physicians proved for the most part unwilling to take any responsible role in administering to a patient who was so evidently close to death. This was understandable in an age where medicine remained primitive and suspicions of poisoning were rife, with punishments for such misdemeanors proving drastic in the extreme. Indeed, doing nothing was often less likely to harm the patient than administering the usual accepted treatments. However, amongst the Pope's personal physicians was a Jewish doctor called Giacomo di San Genesio, who favored his own advanced methods of medical treatment above the more medieval practices then current. Excessive bleeding with leeches was commonplace and usually only served to weaken the patient. Similarly archaic was the administering of elixirs of life containing gold or ground pearl or other exotic ingredients whose sheer expense encouraged the expectation of efficacy. Instead, San Genesio was all for radical and experimental treatments, several of which would later be adopted by orthodox contemporary medicine. Unfortunately, many of these treatments had yet to evolve the modern refinements which accounted for their curative rather than their hazardous properties. In order to cure Innocent VIII, Giacomo di San Genesio decided to perform the world's first blood transfusion. This involved him bleeding the Pope, whilst at the same time inducing him to drink draughts of freshly drawn youthful blood, a treatment which would result in the death of 3 10-year-old boys, before San Genesio was persuaded to desist. By then, Innocent VIII had become so weak that he was able to take for nourishment no more than a few drops of milk from the breast of a young woman. At the time, Italy was in the midst of what seemed to many like a golden age. According to the contemporary historian Francesco Guicciardini, since the fall of the Roman Empire, Italy has not experienced such peace and prosperity. The entire land has become adorned with magnificent princes and beautiful cities, filled with noble minds, learned in every branch of study, and skilled in every branch of the arts. This may have been a somewhat rosy view, but there was no denying that something momentous was taking place in Italy. The Renaissance, centered on Florence, was coming into its own, with the rebirth of classical learning, art and architecture inspiring the likes of Botticelli and Leonardo da Vinci. A new era of practical humanism was beginning to emerge, with its emphasis on the values and philosophical attitude adopted by an individual human being during the course of his or her life. This replaced the otherworldly preoccupations of the Middle Ages, during which our life on earth was seen as a necessary ordeal. After death, we would be judged and rewarded with a life in paradise or otherwise, dependent upon the good or evil which we had manifested during our earthly life. Put simply, during the Renaissance, humanity was beginning to undergo a sea change. This marked an entirely new attitude towards life, one whose effects are still with us to this day.